lesbian, gay, and bisexual and transgender LGBT rights in the United States of America vary by jurisdiction, which means, varies by different state laws. Since June 26, 2003, sexual activity between consisting adults of the same-sex adolescents of a close age has been legal nationwide, pursuant to the U.S. Supreme Court ruling in Lawrence versus Texas. As of June 26, 2015, all state licenses and recognize marriage between same-sex couples as a result of the Supreme Court same-sex couples as a result of the Supreme Court decision in Obergefell versus Hodges. Sorry if I didn't say that right. The Don't Ask, Don't Tell Me policy in the United States military was repealed in September 2011. Transgender individuals were allowed to enlist in the United States military as of January 2018. This has become legal in all 50 states since 2016. Hate crimes based on sexual orientation or gender identify are also punishable by federal law under Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act of 2009. Adoption of children by same-sex married couples is legal nationwide since June 2015, following the Supreme Court decision in Obergefell versus Hodges. Although Mississippi did not have its same-sex adoption ban struck down by the federal court until March of 2016. So the reasons why I bring all this up, we're dealing in a time period where people are trying to force different things down our throat, in my personal opinion, such as, you got to keep in mind of something. It's not really so much of the fact as what they're doing. You might not, you may personally disagree with the fact they're gay or if they're, transgender. However, that's your right. You do have that right to disagree with it. However, with that being said, there's certain points that we're coming to that we actually have to ask ourselves, why are they trying to force it down our throat? I have a lot of friends that are gay. I even have family members that are as well. And I still say these issues, For instance, like the whole... a long time ago, it took place in a protest, even though at the time I was practicing Satanism. There was a lesbian couple that was protesting the church for them to wed them. I saw a problem with this. Even though I didn't necessarily agree with the religious background, I also didn't agree with the fact that they were trying to force them to do something that goes against what they believe in. It's not okay for you to try to slap their religion in the face, basically. How do you put this? They don't necessarily believe it's right. They believe it's a sin and an abomination for you to be that way. So, there's separation of church and state for a reason. You shouldn't be allowed to try to force them to wed you if they don't want to. That is why you do have some churches now that actually do wed lesbian and gay men. That's been an ongoing thing for a couple years now. Find one of them, but don't try to protest and force all churches to do it, because you're slapping their belief system in the face. That's just disrespectful and wrong on every level. I don't care what religion you are. It's common sense. And it brings me to another point. Same-sex bathrooms. They seem like a good idea, but are they? Here's the deal to think about. So let's say you have a little girl, or even vice versa, a son, and you're in a public bathroom. You're at a public restaurant, public store, whatever have you. Even if your kid is, most parents, if your kid is around 8 years old, 9 years old, just kind of go use the restroom, do what you got to do, make sure you wash your hands and come back. You're not going to think too much about it. But nowadays, it seems you have to. Now you got people that are saying they're transgender and they identify with that. Okay, whatever, identify with that. But where we have to learn to draw the line is when is it unsafe? Think about, you have pedophiles and rapists walking around the United States, walking around the world, really, all the time. So let's say that, you send your kid into a restroom. It's one of the transgender, non-binary, whatever you want to call it, bathrooms. And then you have some pedophile that just so happened to feel that day that he was a woman. So he's like cross-dressing or whatever. He goes into the restroom and your child is in that restroom, and then, he starts to, do what they do to your child, take pictures or whatever. Do we have the right to beat the living hell out of that individual? Because I personally feel like we should. In fact, if it happened to my child, you bet your ass I would. This is a very real danger that I see with this. It's not so much the fact that you identify with whatever you identify with, and that's fine. But I'm not okay with the fact of whoever identifying with it, even if you're a woman. I mean, say you go into the only restroom that's open is one of these transgender bathrooms. So you're thinking, I'm going to go in there real quick and do what I got to do. Well, bam, somebody grabs you or throws you into the stall, whatever. Well, that's just something to think about. I mean, and I really started thinking about this because back when I was homeless and I was at the Twin Cities Rescue Mission, it was a men's rescue mission. So one of my friends had a little girl, and I took her to the bathroom, and I was standing outside the bathroom door, and an individual walked up, had a scar in his cheek. I'll never forget who he was. For legal reasons, I won't say his name. And he wanted to go into the restroom. I said, no, you got to wait a minute. He goes, I really got to go. So me and my homeboy dragged him outside and did what we had to do. Later on, I'm looking at Megan's Law and kind of find out that he was convicted of child molestation charges. Lewd and acts against a child or whatever it is. So he could have been trying to go in there after that girl. Now, that brings me to my point before. Who's to say that this person that says, hey, I woke up feeling like I'm a female today, isn't actually some rapist or pedophile? Or even, I woke up feeling like I'm a guy today. You don't know. You just simply don't know anymore. That's the world that we're living into. There's a lot of dangers that come with that. I'm very much against this transgender bathroom thing. If you want to be transgender, although I think you're crazy for it because, scientifically speaking, unless you're one of the very rare cases, and there is very rare cases of somebody born with both anatomy parts, that is a very rare thing. Typically, you're born with the penis or a vagina. That's just, that simple. You're either one or the other, So, the fact that you're just walking around saying, I identify as this today. I mean, can I walk around and just say, hey, I identify as Batman today? You know what I'm saying? Like, when is it actually too much? That's what you got to ask yourself. When is it too much? I mean, you have people protesting churches to wed them. You have people trying to say that they have the legal right to go into whatever bathroom, regardless of the fact if you feel unsafe because your child is in there. So that's going on. You got both of those things going on. And as far as the military goes, I don't really see a problem with it per se, mainly because of the fact that, once again, like I said before, I have friends of mine that are either gay or lesbian, and two of those guys happen to be in the United States military. And one of them one time told me, he goes, at the end of the day, I could still shoot a gun just as good as a straight guy. He kind of proved this point right there. So do I feel like he has the right to be in the armed services? Absolutely. I am fully in favor of that law of the don't ask, don't tell being appealed. I think that was a good thing. However, that soldier also has to realize that it might make some other soldiers uncomfortable. And, you're going to have to deal with that. As an adult, you're going to have to deal with that. It's kind of one of those things of, oh, you feel uncomfortable about it? Well, you want to solve the problem? You get what I'm saying? Or if you got a problem with it, don't take a shower at the same time I do, kind of thing. I don't have a problem with your sexuality. That's not the issue. The issue is when you try to force me to believe that it's natural. I don't believe it's natural. I don't think that's a natural thing at all. I do believe that there's some psychological factors to it, especially going on nowadays. When you look at the media and you look at commercials, movies, TV shows, what have you, even songs, you have a good percentage of them that either talk or, talk about being gay or lesbian and how that's great and, basically support it. So do I think there's some psychological effects to that? I absolutely do. At one point I felt like it was becoming a trend that a lot of people are swinging that way simply because it seemed like it was the thing to do, kind of thing, everybody else is doing it. So they kind of felt like, hey, let me jump on that bandwagon. Honestly, I think that there is some psychological factors to it. I don't think it's a natural thing. I think that we're naturally attracted to the opposite sex. I think that's how we're designed. I don't necessarily... This isn't even really... Like, a lot of people will say, that's just how God designed it, Who's to say who designed what, honestly? Like I said, for a long time I was a practicing Satanist, and even back then I still felt that it wasn't a natural thing. I didn't try to, beat the living hell out of people, though. I had friends of mine that were, and I used to tell them, hey, do whatever you got to do. If that's what floats your boat, float your fucking boat away. Just don't try to force me to believe that is natural, I mean, really, there's a stand-up comedian at one point that he did a joke, and he grabbed out a dildo, and he grabbed out a lube, and he said one is by natural design. When the pussy sucks dick, it gets lubricated naturally. The woman produces natural lubrication, in her body. And he grabbed out KY jelly and put it on a dildo and said, this is by design. You know what I'm saying? So how is it natural how is it natural if it's by design? It's not. You can't really argue that point because physically it's just not. They have to have things to help them get going, The only natural part about it that they can argue is psychologically. And again, I back up to what I said before. Do I think it's a psychological thing? Yeah, I do. I think it's a psychological thing, and I think that's part of that. That would be part of the psychological effect of it, is that's what gets them off, I also feel like there's a good number of them that might have been molested or raped or have you, and that's just how they choose to go, But then again, like I said before, I'm not bashing anybody that practices that sexuality. If that's what gets you off. That's what gets you off. I mean, that's your right to be like that. But my right is not to accept it. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, you can't force me to believe that is okay. You know what I mean? And that's where I think we're drawing the line at here. It's almost like we're making laws forcing people to accept it. If it's a matter of their personal safety, pass it away. If you're trying to protect them, yeah, sure, protect them. But if you're trying to make these laws to try to force us to accept it, it's never going to work. You know what I mean? It's just never is going to work. There's a lot of tenets to Satanism I used to love, and that's the reason why I think for a long time I simply didn't care, and I still don't. I mean, that's their right to be that way. But it's my right to not accept it as well. And you can't try to force me to accept something that I don't think is natural or think is right. I mean, however, there's some other issues that come in mind, like when they're protesting, when they're having their rights protest or whatever, How is it that it's okay that you're marching down the street, yelling and screaming about your rights, being gay or lesbian, transgender, but the minute that somebody else speaks out against it, you call them a Nazi or a fascist and throw stuff at them? That's unacceptable. If you have the right to speak your mind, the opposite person has the right to speak their mind as well. It's just that simple. One can't be right without the other. And you chose to be out there. You chose to march down the street. You chose to scream. You chose to perform these rallies. Nobody had a gun forcing you to do this. This was your own decision. As a human being, you chose that line. You chose to go do that. You chose to be out in the street in front of everybody screaming and hollering. So you cannot expect that there isn't some people that's going to have a problem with that and want to counter-protest. Because that's their right too. Do I agree with it? Not necessarily. You know what I'm saying? The way I look at it is, why are you going to look for trouble? I mean, they're doing their thing. I feel like a lot of times they're kind of like achieving nothing by doing that besides causing another problem. You know? But it's not fascist just because you disagree with somebody. That doesn't make you a fascist. It doesn't make you a Nazi just because you disagree with somebody. It doesn't. It makes you a human being. We're never all going to agree on anything. I think that most people, if they have a certain brain cell level in their head, can comprehend that. We're never going to fully agree on anything. Because that's just not how humans are wired. That's not, you know, what we do. And we have to realize that, you know. However, there are certain things, you know, like part of this I wanted to go into, and I probably shouldn't, is you have a political organization now that's trying to make justification for pedophilia. I seen a girl at a university giving a lecture about it. I'm sorry. You're not going to win that with me. As far as I'm concerned, if you rape children, you should be shot in the street, if not publicly hanged. I don't think it's acceptable that we send them off to a fucking prison. I think that's too good for them. You took away someone's innocence. You took away their innocence. You took away their childhood. So why should I, as a taxpayer, let you go off to prison in a special needs yard, mind you? Not with the general population. Oh, no, you got your whole separate little fucking program, don't you? And I'm supposed to pay for that? So then when you get out, you can do the same thing again. That's been proven. That's a psychological thing. If you look at the numbers and the statistics, 80% of the time when somebody gets out of prison that's been convicted of that, they do the same crime again. You can't deny that because I've said it before. Numbers don't lie. They just don't. You know what I mean? And you can't sit here and try to say they do either. That's not logical in any shape, form, or way. And let me re-earth the fact that I did say that I believe everybody has a right to love whoever they want to love. But if your love is a child, you get the fuck out of my face because you're lucky I don't fucking shoot you in the head. I'm sorry to be that way, but I do feel that way. I do not think it's okay to rape anybody. I don't think it's okay to molest any child. I think that those type of crimes, I don't even think they should go to prison. Like I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think we should have a public hanging for them. You know what I'm saying? And if they're, hell, for that matter, let's go deeper with it. Cut off their sexual organs. You know what I mean? Maybe then they'll think twice. You know? And again, I'm not saying, like, there are a good portion of them that might get trapped on the online fucking thing, you know? Where you hear some people saying, hey, I didn't really do anything. I was looking at this type of image, and then a bunch of other images happen to come up, and because some hacker downloaded it on my computer. I could buy that. But what I don't buy is distributing them. Whatever you get arrested for distribution in it, how are you going to try to tell me that a hacker did that? You get what I'm saying? I'm still waiting for somebody to explain that to me. I've been waiting for about 3 years. So, I mean, there's things to look at it like that. Like I said, I don't swing that way, but I just don't see a problem with it. The only problem I see with it is when they try to force us to accept it. And as far as transgender bathrooms go, I'm sorry, they're not safe. It's not okay in any shape, form, or way because you open up the door for predators to prey. You open up the door for rapists and you open up the door for pedophiles to prey on people. That's exactly what I see. I don't think you need your own bathroom. Let's try this. You say you're transgender, right? You say that you identify that you're a woman or you identify that you're a guy. Okay. So go in a woman's bathroom or go in a men's bathroom because that's what you identify with. And if you try to tell me that you feel unsafe from that, then, maybe you should go to your own gender bathroom until you can figure it out. You know what I'm saying? I don't think you need your own special fucking bathroom. I think that's some liberal fucking nonsense right there. They're trying to force us to go, okay, that's fine. We don't care if you feel it's unsafe. part of the thing I read earlier was one of the hate crimes that was published, and it's kind of a gray area, because when you get down to transgender, gender identity, such as the Matthew Shepard's and James Byrd case, right? They also, did a Hate Crimes Prevention Act of 2009. Well, I see a little gray area problem there. And that area is, if I think you're a rapist, or if I think you're a pedophile, you're trying to go in the bathroom when my child goes in there, I'm going to beat the hell out of you. And that's not a fucking hate crime. That's a defending crime. That's me defending my child. Or that's you defending one of the children of your family. That's not a hate crime. That's called protection. Because I don't know who you are, and I don't know what your intentions are. I think that's the gray area with that with the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd case. I really do. Now, when you look at the Act of 2015, in June 2015, where they say that children by same-sex married couples, that passed in June of 2015, I honestly feel like that's okay. Because I feel like if they got their shit together and they're regular citizens, the only thing wrong is they like to do each other and they're the same sex, I don't feel like that's putting a child in danger. I really don't. Because, DHS investigates these people. Thoroughly investigates these people. And although you might not agree with it, again, let me go back to earlier in the show whenever I said I do have family members that are gay or lesbian. And you know what? I was left alone with them too. And nothing bad happened. They're not all like that. So I don't really see a problem, with the case of Oberfell and Hodges. I just don't. I don't see that as a big issue. I think they should have the right to adopt kids, honestly. The only way they shouldn't be allowed to adopt kids is there's something in their background history check that comes back as a danger. If it comes back as a danger, then no, you don't have a right to adopt that kid, because that kid has potential to be in a dangerous situation. I think that's where we have to draw the line with that. But as far as the rest of it goes, just don't get mad at people for having an opinion that's different than yours. You run into that a lot nowadays, with people saying, it's just not right. It's an abomination. It's a sin. You're going to hell. Well, how do you know? You know what I'm saying? You're saying they're going to hell because you're a Christian, and that's what you were raised to believe. They also have a right to live their lives. If they're walking down the street holding hands, that's their fucking prerogative. You don't have no right to start throwing the Bible down their throat. Sorry, you don't. At that point, you're making them feel uncomfortable, you're causing a scene, and you're making yourself look like a jackass. Now, if they're walking down the street holding hands, saying gay is right, and everybody else is wrong, by all means, preach away to them. Because then they're asking for it. They've opened themselves up for an attack. Because they're trying to throw it down your throat that you're wrong and they're right. And at that point, that's when it becomes a problem. At that point, then you have the right to try to tell them whatever you want to tell them. But until they do that, you do not have that right to try to force your religious viewpoints down their throat. You just don't. Just because they believe different than you, don't give you a right to try to force your belief down there. And vice versa, because they believe this way, don't give them a right to try to force it down your throat. Let me be perfectly blunt with that. Because a lot of people are very vague about it. That's really what you got to look at. I mean, do what you got to do. Just quit trying to force everybody else to accept it. If you want to be a gay guy and have fun and do whatever, do it. If you're a gay married couple and you want to adopt a kid, do it. Just don't put them in danger. Protect them. Treat them like a regular fucking parent would, and I bet you will. Vice versa, if you're a lesbian, same fucking thing. Do me a favor, though. Don't try to force feminism onto the kid. That's a whole nother subject for a whole nother podcast. I tell you what, it really is. These are all things we got to look at. These are all issues that are really big issues going on right now with society, and nobody wants to talk about it. Those guys down in Texas that beat that kid, tied him to a tree or tied him to a fence and beat the hell out of him because he was gay, I feel like they should all have been shot. You know? That's what I'm saying. It's not right for you to try to force your beliefs on anybody. And it's not right for them to try to force theirs down your throat. It's just not. What makes our nation so great is freedom. And freedom goes a whole lot further than what people think. We live in a free nation. You know, we live in a kind of nation where if you want to wear leather chaps and walk down the street with the fucking leather vest unbuttoned with your chest out, you have that right. You know? Or if you're a female and you want to shave off all your hair and wear jeans and a flannel and act like a male, you have that right. And if somebody wants to walk down the street with the Bible, that's their right too. The minute you two start fighting with each other and trying to force each other's viewpoints, that's when it's not all right. That's when it's not okay. You know, it's one thing to have idle conversation with somebody and talk to them in a certain way with respect. That's perfectly fine. Nobody's going to really judge you. Nobody's going to really go out of their way to try to say you're wrong on that one. It's the issues that transpire when they're doing something, you know. And if they're doing their own little rally, do society a favor. Don't go to it if you disagree with it. You know? Quit putting cameras on them. Because when you put cameras on them, not all of them, but a lot of people will start acting like a jackass. Simply because they see their 10 minutes of fame coming. You know, and it's like, oh, let me show my ass real quick because cameras are here. You know what I'm saying? You know, and I really don't see the point in the other thing either. It's like when they're protesting, if they're doing a gay and lesbian rights protest or a transgender, whatever the hell it is, and you don't believe in that, why the fuck are you going? Other than to start shit. You know what I mean? The only reason why you're really going is because you want to start some shit. Or you wouldn't go. You know what I'm saying? There's only two reasons why you would go. Because you want to start shit or you want to try to force your viewpoints onto them. That's the only two reasons why you would go. Otherwise, you stay the hell out of it. I don't want to, you know, not in my backyard. Fuck it. And I'm going to go a little bit into the past podcasts, Antifa and all that. I don't like them. I disagree with them. I think that most of them are idiots, you know, whatever. And I wish they would quit putting cameras on them because, again, it makes them act like jackasses. They start breaking shit and screaming and setting fire to shit simply because cameras are on them. I think that media really needs to pay attention to that. How much media is too much media? You're giving them like this complete like open area. Like, I'm going to start doing this. Fuck it. Because they're watching me. I mean, really, is it that hard to figure out? You know? I wanted to talk a little bit about this because I have family members that are gay and lesbian. I have friends of mine that are gay and lesbian. And I cannot stand homophobic people. I just can't. You know? I've never been at a party where there are some of them at. It's just some random dude or chick grabs my ass. That's never happened. Most of the time, they respect you. For a couple of reasons. One, you're there. And two, because you're accepted of them. Most of the time. You know what I mean? But you know, it's not like a gay guy is walking down the street and just grabbing your dick going, how are you doing today? You know what I'm saying? Most of the time, they want to be left the fuck alone. most of the time, a woman, that swings that way with another woman, you're not, well, let me take that back, because some of them really do get carried away. But for the most part, though, it's the same kind of thing, They're not just going to walk up to some random female and grab their tits and go, hey, how you doing? Because why would they? Unless they want to start some shit, You notice I keep going back to that because I've noticed over a period of a couple years now that a lot of times people just want to start some shit. I think a lot of these riots and a lot of this protesting, and I think a lot of that would be done away with and people would be done with it if they quit fucking shining the camera on them. Like, really look at them when they're interviewing these people at these protests and rallies. Look at them really good. Because you'll see one person talking, and you'll see like 6 other people trying to get into the camera shot. Screaming away. Because psychologically, they want to be seen and heard too. So, I say all this because there's been so much attention to same-sex couples. There's been so much attention to transgender people that I do feel like it's become a psychological problem. That you do have some people out there that's like, oh, this is a trendy thing to do. I forget who it was. There was a murder case to where there's a younger guy and he felt like he was gay, right? So he went out to this club and he met a guy and they started messing around and the guy realized that he wasn't gay and the guy was drunk and, he was already ready to go, so to speak. And that kid killed him because he felt like he was in danger. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying. That's the psychological part I'm talking about. When I say psychological, that's what I'm referring to. Is sometimes they just don't know. That's not a hateful thing. That's a really honest thing, Sometimes they just don't know. They might think they do, but they don't. You get what I'm saying? So if you're out there and you're gay or lesbian and, whatever, that's your right. Do what you want to do, but don't try to force me to believe it. Don't try to make me believe that it's natural and okay if I don't want to believe that way. I'm going to respect you, and I'm going to let you do what you want to do. Because that's your right. I might nod in disagreement, but I'm not going to go out of my way to chastise you and make you feel like shit about it. You're going to do that yourself. You know what I mean? And I say that because so many times people do that, It really is a big issue. And I really do feel like so much of it is due to attention and confusion, And I think a lot of it could be done away with without attention to it. I just really feel that way. I'm not trying to say that there aren't some people out there that's just what they like to do. There has to be, or it wouldn't have been around for centuries. Whether you want to believe it or not, gay and lesbians have been around since the dawn of time. I'm pretty sure they were even in the caveman days. You get what I'm saying? That speaks for itself. They wouldn't have wrote so much about it in different religious texts if it wasn't around. It's always been around. You just didn't hear about it back in the day. You didn't turn on the TV and see two guys kissing or two girls kissing back in the day. You know, you just didn't. Unless you were watching some, like, you know, out there porn or something. It's just not something that you're exposed to on a regular basis. And you know what? You had a lot less problems back then. A whole lot less problems. So I bring that back because I do feel like attention is not always a good thing to it. You're going to notice I'm going to go back to that. And I'll continue to go back to that. This is a social thing, you know. You know, there's so much attention on it. What is it? There's even cases of children who are too young to comprehend what sex is, saying that they identify as being the opposite sex now. You know, I'm willing to bet that that's from so much media attention. I'm almost willing to bet money on that. Because I'm 36 years old. And when I was a kid, I didn't know anybody that said that at 10 years old. You never heard that. Why didn't you ever hear it? How come you never heard it? You know? The reason why you never heard it is because it wasn't on every single fucking channel, on every single magazine, on every single freaking radio show. That's why you never heard it. I mean, that's really social 101. I mean, when things become cool, whether you like it or not, a lot of people tend to go, I want to give it a whirl. Even if they don't know what they're thinking. You can't, if you deny that, not only are you wrong, but you're naive. I want to point out something. You remember, long time ago, when Gangster Rap first came out, how many kids did you see walk around with sagging pants and backwards jerseys, bandanas? You know? Okay, let's go even further than that. How many times before did you see people wearing tight pants, mohawks, leather jackets, and Doc Martens that didn't even know anything about punk rock? And how many cases did you come across that where people were in the wrong place at the wrong time because they didn't know what they were getting into? It's because they were exposed to it so much that they said, I want to see what it's about. Is it right? No. You know, I didn't say it was right. All I said is that was what the media was talking about. You remember earlier when I said I was involved in Satanism for a long time? In 1980s, you had something that we deemed the Satanic Pan Epidemic. The Satanic Pan Epidemic was when you had churches coming out in the 80s when all music was satanic and all these TV shows were satanic and all these movies were satanic. Satanic, 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 Satan, 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 satanic, satanic, satanic. Throughout the 80s and early 90s. Guess what? More people started acting like Satanists and more people started going and looking for the into that stuff simply because of the fact that they were exposed to it fucking all the time. Every time they turned on the TV, every time they turned on the radio station, every time they went to go to a movie theater, every time they opened up the newspaper, you know, they heard it so much it was programmed into their mind that they wanted to start, you know, looking into it. And the reason why I bring that up is, again, that goes back to media exposure. That's what the media was focused on, you know. There was so much focus on it that eventually people started wanting to be a part of it. I think that's what's going on with transgender, and I think that's what's going on with gender confusion. There's so much media exposure on it that so many of them don't even know what they're talking about. They just want to try it. They think they're that way because every time they fucking turn on the TV, that's what they see. You know what I mean? Every time they log into Facebook, that's what they see. The result of that is quite simply, now they're confused. They weren't confused before, but now they are. You know what I mean? And I want to go back to the other thing, too. I'm not saying that there weren't always people that identified as opposite sex. There were. There was always people that were gay or lesbian, too. But it wasn't every single place you turned before, was it? That didn't start happening until you heard about it 24/7. Now that you hear about it 24/7, it's like probably like 2 in 10 people say they're gender confused. And they don't know what they are. They don't know if they're a boy or a girl. They don't know if they're gay or lesbian. But it wasn't always that way. These are the simple points we're pointing out here. People need to wake up and realize, hey, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sit here and constantly bash the media, you know. It's just I feel like the media should be using their tools for something better. Like, here's some fact data today on Channel 6 News. You know? Or today in Psychological Today, they say this or that. Instead of just, you know, blatantly talking about it and confusing the fuck out of people. You know? I don't think necessarily that would be a bad thing. I think that would be a good thing. But anyways, I just want to talk a little bit about that. Once again, it's just blue collar thoughts. I wanted to open up the show with a little bit of different court rulings. I'm going to reinvert the fact that that wasn't all the Supreme Court rulings throughout all the time. However, that was a good portion of them. And if you want to know more about it, you can contact your local you know, their leagues, or you can actually research the stuff yourself. The more you know, the more you grow.